YT's Capra AL Comp sits towards the lower end of the pricing spectrum in their Capra lineup. It's actually one of only 2 aluminium bikes in the range, but still, it comes with a fantastic spec and it's really good value for money. Like Canyon, YT are another direct sales online brand, and now globally they're bigger than ever, having signed Aaron Gwyn at the end of 2015, and he actually wrapped up the overall World Cup series in 2016, which is a hell of an achievement. Back to the Capra itself. Now, the Capra has 165mm of rear wheel travel, which in this case is controlled by the RockShox Monarch Plus RC3 rear shock. Up front sits the RockShox Lyric RC fork. It's not the full-blown RCT3 fork, but still you get some low-speed adjustment there, and you still get the great solo air spring, which we've come to love over the last couple of years. Considering the price, it's really impressive to see SRAM's guide brakes on here. There's also DT Swiss's E1900 spline wheels wrapped in Maxxis tyres, which is always good to see. In this case, they're actually the high roller 2s. SRAM also take care of the gearing. Now, they don't use a SRAM crank, they actually use a race face turbine crank, which is no bad thing. It's nice and stiff and a really solid bit of kit. We've also got a race face Atlas bar and stem, as well as a lovely RockShox Reverb Stealth dropper post. So when you look at the price, YT have actually done a really good job with speccing some great components where it really counts. Good tyres, great suspension, and a really solid finishing kit in terms of bar, stem and seat post. And at a total of just over 14.5 kilos, it's not going to break the scales either. It's not super light, but then it's still, you know, a 160, 170mm bike. So it's a big hitter and it's built to last. On the hillside, the first thing we really came to notice was just how well balanced the suspension was. Other than setting the sag, we didn't faff around with anything. We didn't add any more tokens to the forks or any bands to the shock. Things felt set from the get-go, which is great, especially as you're buying online, so you don't have the shop to go in and a mechanic to help you out setting things up. That suspension balance, combined with that slack 64.3 head angle, means that you really feel you can charge into sections, and there's plenty of stability there. Batter through a rough, rocky section and you feel totally composed on the bike. You don't need to move around a lot, it stays planted and just bangs on through without really skipping or jumping offline, which is fantastic. Nice and accurate, exactly where it counts. It's also nice that the Capra doesn't feel too labour intensive when it comes to the climbs. The seat angle measures just under 75 degrees, so it feels quite efficient as soon as you lock that shock out with the low-speed compression lever on the shock. Now, while the High Roller 2 might not be everyone's first choice when it comes to Maxxis tyres, they are a decent all-rounder, even in the mud and wet, same as in the dry. They're predictable and they're tacky enough that they don't just give up their grip as soon as you hit rock or root, even in the wet. While on the whole, we're seriously impressed with the Capra and its performance, and I mean, we always have been since it came out back in 2014. The one thing that hasn't really changed with the Capra is the sizing. Now, they've added an XL to the frame size, but even me at 5'8", I still need to ride a size large, which is quite unusual, simply just to try and get the length in the bike. The reach on the size large is actually 443, which comes up pretty short, and it's now what most brands would probably consider around about the medium. So they're still a ways off, and that means, okay, there's a bike there if you're around the 6 foot mark, but anyone taller than that is probably going to struggle for sizing. That said, obviously it's still a fantastic bike if you can get one that fits you. The great suspension balance, fantastic components, great tyre choice, weight and value for money, it all really adds up. The back end of the Capra is nicely progressive. That means while you still get a nice amount of feedback for your feet, it's not uncontrollable or anything like that, it still means you just get plenty of feel for what's happening under the tyres and the feel for the trail. But there's enough progression there so you can properly thump it into gaps and drops without worrying you're just going to smash through the travel and properly bottom it out every time, which is a great feeling and does obviously add to confidence when you're riding something particularly tough. So overall then, it is a composed ride. It feels fast, there's plenty of pop and a liveliness to it that make it lots of fun to ride. But you've also got a low enough BB that sits just over the 340 mark, so it feels really confident in the turns as well. It's slack up front, so when it does get steep, it means you can really attack hard, which is fantastic. But unfortunately, the sizing then still rules out some of our guys in the office, so it is a bit of a frustrating one. But hopefully YT will see to this in the next generation of Capras.